We were just trying to make our niche, and I think it's there. I just think that this year was an over expenditure, and it's unfortunate, but we can't take all of our attempt to be a community that does something together and get rid of it, in my estimation. Not without a fight, anyway.
Can I say something positive?
Yes, please.
I just did.
I think the one thing that, I agree with John and some of this, but one thing I want to clarify, our staff, Karen and her people, put their heart and soul into it. They worked really, really hard. And it didn't do what they expected, but we should give them a pat in the back for the effort. They worked really, really hard this. I'm not sure how many other cities have staff that would work that hard for a community event.
Mr. Mayor. Well said, Marv. That's what makes it very difficult for me, because I am more concerned about pissing Karen off than I am about running the city. But my quick synopsis, because we're almost out of time, is, wow, that's a lot of money. I looked at it and I said, wow, that's a lot of money. We can't spend that much money. We need to have a festival. We have to figure that out. I know that in a lot of cities, most cities, I think, there's a much bigger private sector influence in these festivals. And so we need to figure that out. Because, quite frankly, I'm not going to be willing to spend that kind of money.
Think what we could do with the community center with an extra $65,000.
Right. And so that's a bunch of money. We don't have time to figure it out tonight, but we need to figure it out. And so I'm for a festival. I can't spend that much money.
No,
And
I have a
so-
$30,000 limit personally.
Thank you. I think that's the direction we're looking for. We will bring this back. Obviously, there's some different opinions on the council. We don't have the time to expound that. I think we've got direction. We'll look at some other options, bring that back to you. One of the next meetings, we want to get a decision so we can start planning for next year if we're going to have this. So we will bring it back to you at that point. So, Mr. Mayor, would you like, we'll move on. Karen, I think you've got the next item, and that one you really get to go brief on. Just hit the summary of the item.
Okay. Well, actually, I'll talk really fast, which I'm pretty good at, but I wish I had a Kleenex to wipe my tears before I go further.
Ask Mr. Nephew for one. He started it.
Yeah, do you happen to have a hanky?
Usually I got a somewhat used napkin.
That's all right. I'll pass then. I got long sleeves on.
Concentrate, people.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. As you're well aware, the Maplewood Monthly is produced 12 months out of the year. And with the new department, the Park and Recreation Department being reestablished, which we certainly are supportive of, and I will just say that Dewey has done a wonderful job in stepping in. It's been a lot of work, and so kudos to him, and I'll help him as best as I can in this transition as we go on. The one thing that staff has talked about doing is going back to the quarterly Park and Recreation brochure, which is what we did years ago before Miss Carey had left and then came back. And in order to reduce our costs, we combined those publications, and now they want to go back to doing the quarterly. The quarterly brochure is about 32 pages is what it used to be, so it would probably be in the same area. So in your report you see it's about $57,000 if we would send that quarterly publication to all of the residents of Maplewood and of North St. Paul. That money is not budgeted, like the taste is. So we are... Sorry, Will, I just had to. We don't know where that money would come from. We do think that we would be able to acquire some money from the city of North St. Paul. We're not really knowing how much at this time. But one of the things that we're thinking that we could possibly do to help subsidize this quarterly publication is back the Maplewood Monthly off to 8 times a year, and that would save us about $40,000. So that's kind of where we are. We could do this administratively if we wanted to, but we wanted to see what your initial thoughts were to going to the 8 times a month. I've also had a conversation with Chuck regarding the $57,000 and maybe the cost of that, and maybe doing something else with social networking instead of going to this publication, but it's something that we'll want to work with the Park and Recreation staff with. But we just kind of wanted to give you a heads up of where we were and what we were thinking to see what your initial thoughts were. I think that Chuck had something to say as well.
Mayor and Council, I don't. The one issue before you, are you okay with us exploring only 8 per year next year, or do you want to do the 12?
Council, 15-second responses.
Yes.
Mr. Lamas.
Eight's-
Oh,
look
wait.
at it.
Mr. Lamas.
I would say that I wouldn't be. I would think that we would still like to stay for 12. That's my personal opinion. I would think that we can also opt people out so that if they're given an opportunity to receive the document electronically, at least saving on postage and printing. One of the articles in your next newsletter could say, if you would prefer to receive this electronically like we all do with our bank statements, everything else, that people could opt into that, and I think we could we do that?
Mayor and members of the council, we have looked into that, and because we do a postal sort, you can't just pick this address and that address. Otherwise, we'd have to go to a service that would provide us labels, and then you're constantly updating, and we've looked into that, and it's very costly.
Yes.
So we'd love to do that, but it doesn't work.
Ms. Schoenemann?
I have a question on the Parks and Rec booklet. Does it have to be 4 times a year because you can't schedule any further out? You couldn't do like fall and winter together and spring and summer together, or?
Mayor, members of the council, it's really difficult to do that just
Okay.
because of all of the timing of the programs.
I just thought it might be an option. I'm looking for a place to cut it and still do it, that's all. I don't care what we do with the city monthly. I like that it comes every month, but, you know, maybe it wouldn't be bad if people would have to go a couple months. Hey, did you see a monthly? Instead of tossing it in the recycling barrel. So you never know. Sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Anything?
I think you're on the right track. Supportive. I was going to, the idea of using social networking or the online options is good, but you're not going to be able to do that right out of the gate. It's going to take time to ramp up, and so you have to have this as an interim solution. And I think that the idea of cutting down the Maplewood Monthly is the right one for saving the funds needed to make the rec booklet possible. And hopefully, most of the difference can be made up from North St. Paul. I don't know if that's realistic, but we can hope so.
And Marv, do you want to briefly repeat what you already said?
I'm with John.
Okay. I think it's really important that we communicate with our residents, and so I would be willing to find the money to continue to have 12 issues of the monthly, along with what we need to do for Parks and Rec.
Tell you what, we'll just put the mayor's letter in the quarterly.
There, we'll
Parks and
solve
Rec.
that. So, were you keeping score over there? All right,
Yes, we did keep score.
okay. And so that we have one item left then.
Mayor and Council, in interest of time, we're proposing rate increases of various amounts. As you see, the fees may sound significant. They're a few dollars per year. I understand that's additional same dollar that those residents. Most of the area, the sewer fund, we're seeing significant increase from the Metropolitan Council on those charges, but you also see that we're paying for projects. Environmental Utility Fund, we've been raising 7 to 10% over the past few years. Recycling is a 5% due to the new contract. Water surcharge we talked about previously. And the rec programs, we simply need to increase by 5% in order to match the needed revenue. So at this point in time, due to the time, we will be bringing this back with these recommendations. This will also be on your December 6th budget hearing. Gail tells me that this will come back to you on November 22nd as part of rate increases. The reason being is that we have to notify the outside billing agencies and give them 30 days in advance. So this is just a heads up that these items are coming. You will have it on your council meeting. We'd hope to use a little time to discuss it, but given the time, we will bring it back on November 22nd.
Anybody see anything that they feel they have to comment on those? Mr. Nephew?
I'm going to be interested in some more information on the numbers in the recycling program fund. I thought the increase being proposed for the fee didn't seem unreasonable, but there are really large percentage increases in the budget for 2011 for things like administration and contractual services on it, and I'm wondering how up-to-date that is with the tennis issue and stuff like that, but this can all be for a future date.
We will bring that back on the 22nd. Again, any more information, if something else comes up, please email us before November 22nd where you have more questions. Otherwise, you will see a fairly similar report the second meeting of November.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
All right, so then we're ready to move into the next part of the meeting, which we have 2 interviews left to do.
Gail, great job. Thank you.
Let's see here, we have, of course, in our packet, all of the applications, and, okay, I see I managed to forget my list of the questions. Okay, good.
Fine. Nah, 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 nah.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to excuse myself.
Excuse me?
I'm going to excuse myself from the interviews.
I'm going to try that next time we're doing this. I'm going to make up somebody that
Oh, that's right, yeah.
is applying.
Have fun.
Mr. Nephew's going to leave because he's setting them all
Here's
out
questions for
because
forgetful people.
he feels that he might have a conflict. We'll talk about that more as we move forward.
Yes,
Very
we
good. Okay, so, and let's see, of course, then we have the list. Trying to get to the right spot. So we have Lynn and James, but I don't, is James out there somewhere?
Not yet.
Not yet.
But he was second,
Okay,
wasn't he? So
he was second,
might
and-
not
and
think
you're
he has to
Lynn?
be here yet.
Okay. And Lynn, did you cheat then by watching all the interviews that we did at the previous one? Well, I'm gonna give you a couple points off then for having
Not
that
cheating?
ability to cheat and.
Actually, I was up here once before. Didn't even spell it.
All right, welcome. Thank you for coming tonight. I want to make sure that we thank you for, 1, sending in your application, and 2, taking some time to come in for the interview. The way that these interviews work is that we have 5 set questions, so each of us has a question that we will ask. And you saw that Councilmember Nephew was leaving, and that's because he has a close relative that it's actually one of the applicants.
Oh, okay.
And so he felt it would be better if he didn't participate, rather than
It's ethical.
suffer the slings and arrows. And so City Manager Mr. Antonin is actually asking a question. The 4 council members, though, are the only ones that actually cast their votes for the candidates. And so we have 2 people left, you and Mr. Meehan, and we are doing a forced ranking system. So after each interview, we presumably end up with a complete list in the order that we think is appropriate.
They're like the ice skating
Yes.
competition or something.
And we don't have time to go into all the various weird things that we tried to do to figure out how to do this well. But so shortly after, I would guess that sometime during the course of the week, that we will be talking to everyone and letting them know what's going on. Does that sound right?
Okay.
Okay. And then we hope to have the first meeting of the new commission in January.
Okay.
So, we have 15 minutes. We really have about 10.
Yeah.
Usually it
Let's
takes
get
about
going.
10. And so we'll move along as quickly as we can, and we're just going to go down our list of questions. And so it appears, let's see,
Mr. Antonin.
Mr. Antonin is first with his question.
Thank you, Mayor. Please explain any background and/or experience that you may have had in any of the following areas: public housing, civil rights, veterans issues, education, employment, or social work.
Okay, well, I can kind of do the process of elimination here. Nothing with veterans and nothing with housing, say that. Education, that's what I do, that's my job. I have taught in adult basic education for 13 years, largely with immigrant and refugee populations, although some of the time was with GED students who English speakers. All of that always filled with diverse people, definitely. I've not been a social worker, however,